Welcome everyone to another episode of the Unquestioned podcast. Today we're actually at episode 9 already. So Louis, are you excited?
Damn straight.
Let's hope we as well make it to the 10th episode. And to keep tradition alive, let's start with a little personal question. And Louis, I would actually
lay it on me.
Want to ask you, why didn't you study at university or finish your degree? Currently you make much more money than me and a lot of people as well. Like you were actually a little bit of a dropout, but why did you decide that?
Yeah, when I don't finish my studies this young, it's not a bug, it's a feature, especially in this industry. So what I did is I started like everyone else I know from my class, from my age group, studying computer science at the University of Ghent.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked it, actually. I went to all the classes, believe it or not, and all the teachers were very passionate. So
Awesome.
There was no problem on the teaching end. It just, after 1 year, I felt like it was a bit too theoretical and too mathematical.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to start building real products that I can use and show my friends and family. And so that urge really to build something that people use is what drove me to the Apple Developer Academy first in Naples, where I met some really interesting people from all over the world, many of whom I'm still friends with.
Amazing.
From Canada, Russia, all over the world. And that got me started. That gave me the opportunity for my first freelance gig, where I worked on real apps for the first time.
Yeah.
And then to Adidas, and now at Spotify.
Boom. So it's kind of a very not straightforward, like everyone goes to university, starts with a little job. You said, immediately I want to work on more practical stuff and I want to really see how it's in the real world, and that's probably you advanced way faster than people that were first.
The main driver was really
years.
that I learned the most working on the job. That's really something I just keep seeing, and after even as much as 1 year of practical experience, your resume becomes worthless. If you can put a few, especially if they're famous, a few good companies on your LinkedIn, people won't scroll down lower than that.
I've heard it actually way more. Like people, I as well wanted to do an extra master's maybe, but I've heard people saying don't do it, just go work for a company that you really admire and you'll learn so much faster than at the school banks. So that's kind of I believe, like for many people today, everything you can learn it online. You can programming, but even other professional professions. So just have an iPhone or have an internet connection, and it's endless the possibilities.
Yeah, it doesn't work for everything, of course. If you want to be a lawyer or a doctor,
correct,
then you have to go the traditional path today. But yeah, software is permissionless, just like a podcast. It's just up to you to get started. But what about your life? How many pivots did you make?
This is a very long personal podcast introduction, but I like it. So my kind of little background story is that I first started studying in America. Wow. So because I studied at the East Carolina University for a year, and I was part as well of the tennis team over there. And then because the goal was to become professional in tennis, but then eventually I realized that this would be very, very big risk, and as well as a tennis player you can't make money forever, and you really have that very elite that you need to belong to. And then I came back to Belgium, started studying business engineering, and after the business engineering everything went really well. I had good grades and I even leveled up, tried to do computer science at the University of Ghent. But then I was excited, did a lot of other projects. I was organizing tech trips to London and all kinds of other activities which weren't studying. And then eventually I got a little worse grades, and then I turned back to my business engineering degree, which had a focus on data analytics. And then in a short period of time I received my degree, and during my master I started a startup. So it was still a little bit in me of doing a lot of things at once, but that helped me a lot to know what I want and what I don't want to do with my life. So that's kind of my background story of studying.
But you did acquire the technical chops to actually implement your product yourself. You're working on the software side of your platform yourself, so that's impressive. Well, still studying business.
Correct. It was kind of business data analytics. You focus on how can I get my, let's say, Excel file with some insights, and learn to write some scripts, but you don't learn anything, or they don't teach anything about building apps, building websites, building how databases can be optimized and so on. So that's all taught online. So and I'm saying, if I, with not very knowledgeable or not super intellectual, can do it, you can do it for sure as well. You just have to have determination and eventually and hard work.
And ChatGPT.
And ChatGPT, that too.
No excuse.
No excuses. But let's get on with enough about ourselves. Let's get on with the topic of today. And the topic of today is how to battle test hardware at scale. And we're going to talk about mainly about the most valuable company in the world. And do you know who that is?
The US government?
The US government. No. It's actually Apple. The US government is in a way as well, but it's not a company but a country. But so a little bit context, probably everyone already knows Apple. But Apple is considered to be one of the strongest companies in the world when it comes to tech hardware.
Yeah, they need no introduction. Come
what?
on, they don't need
introduction. Okay, but mainly they have a diverse range of products, including the iPhone, the iPad, and Mac computers, and as well are, like you said, the most valuable company in the world. And the question is now to you, Louis, why are they the best in hardware? This is maybe a little bit subjective, but how does it come that when they release a product, there's so much hype around it, and the hardware is usually top notch in comparison to the competitors?
Yes, this is a multivariant problem. There's different explanations, but one of them is, you mentioned the hype. That's secrecy, and also they have a consistent release schedule now also, so people know what to expect when. And also in China, they have strong relationships with the manufacturers there. So they really have a strong foothold. And with their size, they can also leverage, they have a very strong position for all sorts of materials. But really, the interesting part is they're category leaders in different devices. They have the Mac and laptops and desktops, and then iPad, which is really the only tablet that actually sells that works well, and Apple Watch, again, you could say the first smartwatch that really works, and that being is due to Apple's last mover advantage. They're not the first, but usually when they wait long enough, they perfect their tech. By the time they come around, they're almost or close to the best.
I would say that as well, because for example, when they released that there was no home button anymore, and they would do it only with facial recognition, there were other phones already on the market that was doing that, but they literally, like, it was so much more perfect and so much more working in all the edge cases possible. So that must have been that they really waited until to release it until it was almost perfect for the users. And I kind of wanted to know to you, why is that they can release such a product? They must test immensely,
yes, yeah.
But how can they still keep that testing it immensely and still keep those features or those hardware products so secret?
Yeah, the problem that you run into at the scale of the iPhone is you can't really take a chance and experiment much, because your product is going to get in the hands of so many users.
All
and
at once.
You can't make any small mistakes. Hardware is hard. It's not like software where you can do a quick bug fix 1.0.1 version of your product.
Yeah.
And actually the original iPhone used this to its advantage because of its smaller scale back in the day compared with BlackBerry, for example. They used this new technology, this capacitive touchscreen with multi-touch that enables scrolling and multi-finger gestures that we're all used to today. That was new at the time, and it wasn't ready for really mass production like we're seeing on the iPhone today. So they were able to do that with their new product, also because they were starting from scratch with this greenfield project.
Yeah.
But how do they do this today? Well, I alluded to it with my iPad and Apple Watch story. They will sometimes test new hardware features on other devices first. For example, we've seen OLED coming to the Apple Watch first.
So wait, can I do a recap? So they first, when they built a certain type of sensor, certain type of hardware, they're first gonna test these little sensors on an iPad or a watch, and then see if it works, and then they're gonna implement it into their, let's say, cash cow or their main money driver, the iPhone. Is that how it works?
Well, yeah, they still make money on these devices, but that's, in my opinion, one of their strong advantages because Apple is vertically integrated. They have all these proprietary technologies that they can deploy across platforms, across devices, without having to reinvent them or rely on a third party. So like I said, we've got OLED screen technology, which first appeared on the Apple Watch. So, the engineers get their hands dirty and see how it behaves. They can calibrate it before it's ready for the iPhone. Yes. Another one is variable refresh rates. They introduced their first custom-made chip, the Apple A4 chip, on the iPad. That was a brand new product before they brought it to the iPhone. And now they're bringing their chips to Mac, their ARM-based chips to Mac even. So we're going full circle, because they also used a lot of Mac tech, especially software.
Yes.
There was a debate at Apple before they introduced the iPhone. What are we gonna use for this? Are we gonna make a baby operating system? But one of the big things about the iPhone is it was running a version of Mac OS, a full Unix operating system, of course with their own layer on top. Yes. But it shared a lot of frameworks with the Mac, which is again what enables app developers to easily port stuff and make them cross-platform. So other examples that come to mind. Haptics. So
the haptic touch.
If you've used a recent MacBook trackpad, not only is the touch tracking
multi-touch
the best in the business, but they have this trackpad that doesn't actually click. It's based fully on haptics. So if you turn it off, you don't press it down, which means it doesn't physically move, which means it's less prone to breaking.
Correct. Less movable parts means less mechanics and less
that's
things
why they moved that to the home button. I'm sure they saw a lot of people breaking their home button or getting water liquid damage on it, and this is also part of Apple Watch. And SSDs are another thing. Flash storage, just like ARM chips, flash storage started on the iPhone or on the iPod even, and now then they brought it to the MacBook Air. Now you can't find a computer with a hard drive that can fail.
It's kind of quite insane. And I wanted to as well ask you about what you think are the differences between testing hardware or the way that Apple releases new products by implementing them in other side products in a way, and then eventually bringing it to the big money winner. But how does software does it well? Does software often have different types of product, for example, for a small customer base, and they try a feature and bring it then to the main one, or you can't compare them? And in software it's always, because they as well have to test before they release one. Do you, because you already talked about it in private, I don't know if I can say it, we can scrap it afterward, but is it as well, because at Spotify all the employees are constantly on a different version of the software, so in a way, could you explain why you guys do that? And
so you always want to, just like when Coca-Cola tries a new brand, they usually pick Australia, or the Netherlands is actually a good test market to try stuff, and software is no different. We will constrain experiments, we'll do A/B tests and limit them to certain areas like, I don't know, Latin America, for example, and only roll it out to a small percentage of users. But with hardware, that's much harder to do. again, with software, you can have your
You can't
control
have,
group.
let's say, the whole company of Apple, everyone with a different type of iPhone. That
They
would
do
be...
actually. They do test pre-release hardware internally.
Oh, okay.
So that is known because, again, the best feedback comes from employees. And I would argue, as a user, if you want to make sure that your screen, for example, has a long life and long support, just make sure you buy the one from Apple, because they will use it, and if there's ever a problem in 3 years, they will fix it. Because
correct.
they can.
Okay, perfect. I think that's kind of already the episode of today. Hopefully you learned something about why Apple is the best in the business of hardware, why testing is so important. And that was episode 9 of the Unquestioned podcast. Again, please like, subscribe, let us know if you have any constructive or destructive feedback. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Unquestioned podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.